Do you think this book, all the images are natural images and they lead to human life? So they're related. Whatever we see in nature is all related to us. So there are some hints to our lives.
Yes, I don't think there's a division between the natural world and the human world. That's not a thing at the time this book was written. People saw how the stars moved in their courses and how the seasons unfolded on the earth, and human culture was meant to be part of that, to follow the same patterns, to be in harmony with that. And and if it failed to be in harmony with that, then that was a big problem, and you needed a better king to put it right. There isn't a dividing line, I think, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yes. You see certain images that can affect our luck. You think that also is true?
Are you thinking of the trigrams in particular?
If you think history repeats itself, what happened in the divination their time can still apply to our life. That means history repeats. There's a certain pattern, certain laws to follow.
Yes. There are patterns, or there are shapes to situations. It's what Wilhelm would have called the quality of the time, quality of a particular moment. Like we were talking about hexagram 28. This can, there can be a moment of great excess, a moment of the ridgepole buckling. The I Ching shows you the detailed qualities of that situation, and the different pictures that represent it. That's the ridgepole, then there's the picture from the trigrams of the water drowning the tree. It's almost like having a very, very precise scientific diagram of the pattern of energy that you're living in.
Oh, what about the last line? Do you think it means King Wen died?
Well, I mean, obviously he did.
The last line of 28.
I'm not mad keen on the practice of trying to tie into every single individual line to a historical event. I think sometimes that the diviners were saying they were trying to convey the quality of a time, and the best way they could convey it was to say, this quality of advancing, of Jin, of progress. It's like that experience of Prince Khan. It's like receiving the gift of horses and being promoted, and it's also like the sun coming forth above the earth.
Yes.
Hexagram 28 it's like the buckling ridgepole, and it's like these kinds of marriage at times. And then when you get to line 6, it's 28. It's like drowning, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Or, well, I suppose you might come through that alive. It doesn't say. It's like your head going underwater. That's an image you can relate to, exceeding and wading the river, and your head going underwater. That's doesn't leave much of a gloss. We know what being underwater feels like, getting out of our depths.
What about the astronomy side of it? Some people think hexagram 1 is all about stars.
I think it probably is. I find that very convincing.
Oh, really?
At the very least, I think that's a layer of it. It talks about the dragon.
Yes.
And of course, dragons in ancient China. There was a dragon asterism that went, a set of constellations that traveled across the sky in the course of the year, and you could set your farming calendar to that, and you would know what time it was and what you needed to be doing. But of course, dragon wasn't just the name of some stars in the sky. Dragons were also mythical creatures that lived on the earth. They lived apparently they spent the winter sleeping at the bottom of mountain lakes. This is something I learned from Steve Marshall's book, The Mandate of Heaven, that I was telling you about. And he prefers to think of the dragon that slept at the bottom of the mountain lake, and the people would climb the mountain in spring when they needed some rain on their fields, and you're not going to get rain on your fields until the dragon flies, and so you have to wake the dragon. And so they would drum and make a big noise and even throw things into the lake to wake the dragon up. the dragon would rise and there would be clouds and there would be rain on the fields. Lisa Heber has speculated interestingly about crocodiles in early China because, they were there and how they behaved and their behavior at different times of year and how that corresponds to those lines as well.
So you mean crocodiles look like dragon a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I got it. I have another question. The dragon is considered evil in the West. Why is that?
Yeah, this is quite a good example of why using your imagination isn't always enough and you need to study things as well. Because there have been Westerners who've written about the I Ching and they've looked at hexagram 1 and said, oh, there's a dragon, that must be evil. It must be something you're supposed to conquer. And of course, that's nonsense. You automatically know that's nonsense because your culture tells you that's nonsense.
Yes.
And I had to learn that. It's a different creature. It represents different things. It's a different animal altogether. It just happens to have the same name, I think.